Hello and welcome to another deep dive. Today is Monday, February 2, 2026. And if you've been tracking the headlines or honestly just trying to scroll through your phone over the last couple of weeks, you know things are different.
Different is one word for it. The digital ground has fundamentally shifted under our feet.
It really has.
Yeah.
We're looking at what feels like a completely new internet architecture, and it all happened, what, just 10 days ago?
It's the end of an era.
Yeah.
And the start of. Well, that's what we're here to figure out, isn't it? But you're right. We are sitting here just a couple of weeks past January 22, 2026.
Yeah.
And that's a date that is going to be in the history books for media studies, for political science, probably for computer engineering, for decades to come.
That was the day the ink finally dried. After years of speculation, the U.S. operations of TikTok were officially sold to a U.S. consortium.
The saga is finally over. I mean, the ban threats, the court cases, the executive orders, it's been going on for what feels like forever.
And it all just culminated in this one absolutely massive transaction.
It is massive. And I think before we even get into the weeds of what's happening now, we have to just take a second to appreciate the sheer scale of what was just sold.
Right.
We're not just talking about some app where teenagers do dances. I mean, we are talking about a platform that way back in 2021 surpassed Google.
Hers Google.
As the most popular domain on the entire internet.
I remember when that stat dropped, it felt like a glitch in the matrix, you know. Google is the internet for most people.
It's the front door.
Yeah. For a video feed to overtake search traffic, that was the signal that the entire hierarchy of information had just been turned on its head.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the growth was just astronomical. It reached 1 billion users faster than Facebook, faster than Instagram, faster than YouTube.
1 billion.
By 2020, it had over 2 billion downloads and was operating in 50 languages. This wasn't just a product. It became a global cultural engine. It effectively replaced the whole idea of the social graph from the 2010s with something entirely new.
And that is exactly the mission for this deep dive. We have a huge stack of sources here, from technical breakdowns of the recommendation engine to supply chain reports on pharmaceutical shortages.
Everything.
We're not just going to rehash the political theater of the last month, though, you know, we obviously have to touch on it.
Oh, of course.
We're going to try to unpack the black box of the app itself.
We have to answer the fundamental question. What did this American consortium actually buy? Because sure, the ownership changed, but the machinery is what matters.
The engine.
The engine. How does that algorithm actually work? How did it rewrite the rules for the music industry, for fashion, and, I mean, even how we buy medicine?
And crucially, what does this new ownership mean for the future of that machinery? We're already seeing the fallout. We've got reports of censorship. We've got the rise of competitor apps like UpScrolled.
And this fracturing of the internet that people have been warning about for years, it's happening.
It really is. It's a lot to get through.
It is. But we have to start with that engine, the secret sauce.
Okay, let's get into it. Segment 1, the algorithm. For years, the narrative around TikTok has been that it's just magic. You know, you open it and it just reads your mind.
Right, the telepathic feed.
But looking at the technical papers and some of the leaked audit documents we have, it's not magic. It's just extremely efficient collaborative filtering.
It's math. Very specific, very aggressive math. And to understand why it worked so well, you really have to contrast it with the incumbent at the time, which was Facebook.
Right.
Facebook and, Instagram, to a lesser extent, were built on what we called the social graph.
The social graph being, I see content because I know you, we're friends, or I follow you, so your posts appear in my feed. The personal connection is the filter.
Exactly. The constraint on your feed was your social circle. TikTok just flipped that completely on its head. They built an interest graph.
The For You page. The FYP.
And that page didn't care who you knew. It didn't care if you had 0 friends or 0 followers on the platform.
Which is so different from anything else.
It only cared about one thing. The content's performance against your specific behavioral vector.
And this is where the cold start problem usually kills new apps, right?
Yeah.
But TikTok somehow solved it.
They did. You could join, post one video, and if the signals were right, you could hit 1 million views in 24 hours. The barrier to entry was effectively 0.
So let's talk about those signals.
Yeah.
Because I think most people still overestimate the value of a like.
A like is a very weak signal. It's almost performative. You might like a video just to be nice or because your friend sent it to you, but it doesn't mean you really loved it. The algorithm, according to the leaked engineering documents we're looking at, prioritized one thing above all else.
Right.
Retention.
So weighted completion rate.
That's the industry term for it, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you watch the video from the very start to the very finish? That is a massive positive signal to the algorithm.
And if you watched it more than once.
Oh, that's exponential. A rewatch is gold. But it goes so much deeper than that. It tracks the velocity of your scroll.
So the speed of your thumb.
Exactly. If you linger on a video about, say, sourdough baking for just 3 seconds before swiping versus swiping instantly on a dance video, the system records that hesitation. It learns.
So it's analyzing your boredom threshold in real time. It's building a profile based on these tiny micro-interactions that you, the user, aren't even aware you're performing.
And this is where that Wall Street Journal investigation from 2021 was so pivotal. You remember that?
Vaguely, yeah. They made a bunch of fake accounts.
They created all these bot accounts with very specific interests. One was programmed to be into depression content, one was into politics, and so on. And they just tracked how long it took the algorithm to figure them out.
And it was terrifyingly fast, wasn't it?
I think the number that stuck with me was something like 40 minutes. 40 minutes for the algorithm to completely zero in on a user's psychological vulnerabilities and build a feed around them.
Wow.
Because it excels at understanding emotion. It's not just tagging videos with cats or cars. It's tagging them with soothing, chaotic, depressive, aspirational.
So it creates a feed that feels telepathic because it's literally mapping your emotional state in real time.
And it's serving you dopamine hits that are perfectly tailored to your psychological profile at that exact moment you're scrolling.
Which brings us to the algorithmic meritocracy argument. The idea that the best content just rises to the top and the feed is this perfect, unbiased mirror of what you want to see.
The great myth.
But we know that's not entirely true, is it? We have to talk about heating.
The heating button. This is the thing that completely undermines that whole meritocracy myth.
This story broke in Forbes back in January 2023. And I remember reading it and just thinking, okay, so the game is rigged.
It was.
The report revealed that employees at both TikTok and its parent company, ByteDance, had a manual tool, literally a boost button, that could just push certain videos into the viral stratosphere.
So it wasn't just the algorithm picking the winners, it was humans, employees sitting at desks. The report estimated that at any given time, 1 to 2% of total daily video views were heated.
And 1 or 2% sounds small.
It sounds tiny. But on a platform with billions of views a day, that's tens of millions of artificially generated impressions every single day.
And the criteria for heating a video, it wasn't just, oh, this is a good video. It was strategic.
Highly strategic. I mean, originally, the stated purpose was innocent enough. It was about diversity.
Right, because if the algorithm is too efficient, it just rabbit holes you into one type of content.
Exactly, and you get bored. So they would heat videos from different genres to force them into your feed to sort of broaden your horizons and, keep you on the app longer.
But they also use it for business.
Of course they did. They used it to court influencers and major brands. If you're trying to get, say, Taylor Swift to join the platform, or the NBA, or the FIFA World Cup.
You can't leave their view counts up to chance.
You can't. You heat their first few videos, they see these millions of views, they get that same dopamine hit we were talking about, and suddenly they're hooked. It's basically a bait and switch.
It's just corporate vanity metrics. But the Forbes report went darker than that, didn't it? It wasn't just corporate strategy.
No. There were instances of employees using it for personal reasons. That's the real risk of any kind of manual intervention.
So what, boosting their own videos?
You had reports of employees heating their own personal accounts, or their spouse's account, or their friends' accounts. It just shattered the illusion that if you just made good content, you could be famous. In reality, there was always this editorial layer, a human layer, deciding what the culture should see.
Which brings us to a really important distinction, the one between what we saw here in the West and what exists in China. Because for a long time, there was this misconception that TikTok was the same app everywhere.
Right.
But we need to talk about Douyin.
Douyin is the original. TikTok is effectively the export version of the app. And while they share the same underlying code base, the same DNA, they really evolved into two completely different species.
Douyin is often described as a super app in China. It's not just for entertainment.
No, not at all. It's integrated into the economy in a way that TikTok is only just now starting to attempt in the West. Years ago, Douyin had these advanced features.
Like what?
Like, you could search a video by a person's face to find other content they appeared in. You could book a hotel directly through a travel video. If you saw a restaurant review you liked, you could tap a button and reserve a table.
Wow.
It was an e-commerce engine first and an entertainment app second.
But the biggest difference, the one that always came up in the political debates, was the regulation, the so-called teenage mode.
This is what critics of ByteDance always pointed to. In China, the government enforced these incredibly strict controls on Douyin for minors. If you were under 14 years old, you were automatically placed in teenage mode.
And that wasn't just a suggestion you could click past, it was a hard lock.
A hard lock. You were limited to 40 minutes a day. The app was completely inaccessible between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., and most importantly, the content itself was filtered.
So no viral dances or pranks.
No. You were seeing science experiments, virtual museum tours, history lessons, patriotic content. It was all educational.
It was essentially a state-run digital classroom.
It was, whereas the export version, or TikTok, had none of those guardrails, at least not initially. It was the Wild West. And critics called it an opium for the masses strategy. The argument was keep the domestic population educated and disciplined and export the digital fentanyl to the West.
And that digital fentanyl, as you call it, didn't just keep people scrolling.
Yeah.
It fundamentally reshaped entire industries.
Oh, absolutely.
Which brings us perfectly to the next section, the cultural ripple effect. Let's start with music, because I think that's where the impact was most immediate and most obvious.
TikTok became the de facto A&R department for the entire global music industry. I mean, if you look at the Billboard Hot 100 from, say, 2020 to 2025, there is a direct, undeniable correlation between TikTok virality and chart success. It became the kingmaker.
Lil Nas X is the classic case study, right?
Oh,
Old Town Road didn't break because of radio play. It broke because of memes. But I think the more interesting phenomenon really was the sleeper hit.
The resurrection of the back catalog. This was both a nightmare and an absolute gold mine for the record labels.
Right. Suddenly, Fleetwood Mac's Dreams is charting because of a guy on a skateboard drinking ocean spray.
Or Kate Bush's Running Up That Hill hitting #1 decades after it was released, all because it was in Stranger Things, and then exploded in a TikTok trend.
It completely broke the traditional music release cycle. Labels stopped focusing only on what was new and started, data mining their own archives for 15-second sound bites that might go viral.
But that power dynamic created massive friction. We have to talk about the Universal Music Group standoff in early 2024.
That was a huge moment. UMG, the biggest music company in the world, basically looked at the numbers and said, wait a minute, you're building a multi-billion-dollar business on our back, and you're paying us pennies for it.
So they pulled the plug. They removed their entire catalog from the platform. Taylor Swift, Drake, The Weeknd just gone overnight.
The app felt like a ghost town for a few months. I remember it was just royalty-free stock music and really bad a cappella covers.
It was a game of chicken. And UMG was also citing concerns about AI, which was a huge deal at the time. They were worried that TikTok was becoming a breeding ground for AI-generated tracks that were diluting the royalty pool for real human artists.
But they came back eventually.
They did. Taylor Swift's music returned in April 2024. But the whole episode proved that even the biggest artists in the world were now dependent on this one platform for discovery and distribution.
But the ripple effect went way, way beyond entertainment. We saw it in global supply chains.
Yeah.
The feta pasta incident is kind of funny, but it's also a serious case study in logistics failure.
It sounds ridiculous, but it was absolutely real. A single viral recipe video caused a global run on block feta cheese.
A global run.
Grocery stores in Finland and the US and the UK, they just ran out of stock for weeks.
Yeah.
Dairy supply chains are not built for that kind of viral spike. You can't just, make more cheese overnight. It takes months.
That is the Amazon effect on steroids. But, while running out of cheese is annoying, running out of medicine is life-threatening.
Yes.
The Ozempic shortage is probably the single most serious real-world consequence of the entire TikTok era.
This is where the ethics get really, really murky. You had a drug, semaglutide, sold as Ozempic or Wegovy, that was designed for people with type 2 diabetes.
Right.
And it had a known side effect of weight loss. Suddenly, you have a hashtag hashtag Ozempic journey, with over 360 million views. You have influencers who were not diabetic at all documenting their dramatic weight loss.
And they were getting prescriptions off-label.
Exactly. The demand just skyrocketed overnight. Pharmacies could not keep up. And the result was that actual diabetics, people who needed that drug to regulate their insulin levels, could not fill their prescription.
Unbelievable.
We have reports from the Australian Medical Regulatory Agency explicitly linking the national shortage directly to these social media trends.
It just highlights this massive failure in our information ecosystem. Medical advice was being dispensed by influencers with zero qualifications, and the algorithm didn't distinguish between a board-certified endocrinologist and a 19-year-old beauty vlogger.
No, if the vlogger had better lighting and a catchier hook, they got the views. And the market responded to the views. It forced pharmaceutical companies to completely rethink their manufacturing and supply chains, all because of an algorithmic trend.
And we saw the same thing happen in publishing with BookTok.
BookTok was fascinating because it was one of the few purely positive supply chain shocks. It single-handedly revived the physical book market, especially for young adults.
It's true. You go into a Barnes & Noble now, and there are whole tables dedicated to As Seen on BookTok.
It drove millions of copies of sales for authors like Colleen Hoover. It proved that long-form reading wasn't dead, it just needed a new discovery engine.
And fashion, too. The mid-size movement was born there.
That was a really important corrective movement. For years, fashion was so binary. You were either a size 0 or you were plus size. TikTok creators started showing what a size 10 or 12 or 14 actually looked like. It forced brands to acknowledge the existence of the average body.
But we also saw the darker side of all that consumerism with the de-influencing trend.
Oh, man.
I love the concept of de-influencing at first. Don't buy this, it's overhyped, it's trash. It felt like a genuine rebellion.
It started that way. It was a backlash against the constant, unrelenting pressure to consume, to buy, to haul. But look at how quickly it was co-opted.
Almost immediately.
Within weeks, the script completely flipped. It became, don't buy this expensive $40 mascara.
Buy this $10 mascara instead.
And by the way, here's my personal affiliate link for the $10 mascara.
So it wasn't anti-consumption at all. It was just alternative consumption.
The system just absorbs the critique. You cannot exist on that platform without feeding the commerce engine. Even the very act of saying don't buy became a new kind of shopping recommendation.
That feels like a perfect, if slightly depressing, segue to the darker psychological impacts. Because if the app can trick you into buying mascara,
it can trick you into much, much worse.
Segment 3, the dark side.
We have to talk about the rabbit hole. This is the core safety flaw of any interest-based graph. If a user shows even a momentary fleeting interest in something harmful, say extreme dieting or self-harm imagery,
the algorithm doesn't see harmful. It just sees engagement.
It just sees engagement.
Yeah.
And it serves more of it. The feedback loop tightens incredibly quickly. We have ample documentation of teenagers being just bombarded with pro-anorexia content or suicide ideation within minutes of searching for something as innocent as weight loss tips.
And the users were always one step ahead of the moderators. We saw the rise of what people called algo speak.
Right. Users would write suicide as unalive or porn as corn or segs. They created this whole new lexicon to bypass the automated content filters.
But the human brain, especially the adolescent brain, decoded it instantly. The filter didn't work on people.
Not at all. And the most tragic outcomes of this were the challenges, the blackout challenge in particular.
This was horrific. It encouraged users, mostly kids, to choke themselves until they passed out, supposedly to achieve some kind of high.
And it resulted in the deaths of multiple children globally. There were major lawsuits filed in Italy and the U.S. In Venezuela, the Supreme Court actually ordered a crackdown and fined TikTok tens of millions of dollars in late 2024 after 2 children died there.
It just raises this fundamental question of liability. Is the platform a publisher, or is it just a mirror reflecting society?
Well, the TikTok tics phenomenon suggests it's much more than just a mirror. It can be a biological influence.
This was a genuine medical mystery for a moment, wasn't it? Doctors in the US, the UK, Australia, they all started seeing this surge in teenage girls presenting with rapid onset tics.
And they were very similar to Tourette's syndrome. They were shouting the same specific phrases, making the same specific physical movements.
And they traced it all back to a few specific creators on the platform.
They did. These patients were all watching popular creators who genuinely had Tourette's syndrome. And the doctors determined it was a form of mass psychogenic illness.
So what does that mean?
It means the teenagers' mirror neurons were firing so intensely from watching these videos over and over that they physically adopted the symptoms they were watching. It shows that the connection between the screen and the brain is far more porous, far more direct than we ever thought.
Wow. And then, on top of all that, there's the whole issue of child safety regarding predators.
The fines really tell the story there. The UK fined them $12.7 million for misusing children's data. The EU hit them with a massive $345 million fine. The US had that early $5.7 million fine.
But the investigation into the Lives feature was arguably the most disturbing part of it all.
The refugee camp scams.
Yeah.
A BBC investigation found that families in Syrian refugee camps were going on TikTok Live and begging for digital gifts from viewers.
And the viewers thought they were donating directly to help these desperate families.
Right. But when the money was actually processed, TikTok was taking up to 70%, 70 of the proceeds as a commission.
So they were profiting off digital begging in a literal war zone.
It was an absolute low point for the company. And then you had the sexual exploitation scandals in Kenya that were exposed in 2025, where the live streaming feature was being used essentially as cam-girl sites for minors.
It just highlighted that at the scale of 1 billion users, moderation is basically a myth. You cannot police that much live video effectively.
It's impossible. And all of these safety failures, they provided the ammunition for the politicians.
But the gun was already loaded by geopolitics.
Exactly. Segment 4, the road to the sale. You simply cannot separate the story of this app from the broader anxieties of the U.S.-China relationship.
It all comes down to the fact that TikTok was owned by ByteDance, a company headquartered in Beijing. In the current geopolitical climate, that was just a non-starter for Washington.
It centers on two key things, the golden share and the National Intelligence Law of 2017. Let's break those down.
Okay, the golden share.
The golden share is a specific Chinese corporate mechanism. The Chinese government, usually through state-backed funds, takes a 1% stake in the key domestic subsidiaries of big tech companies like ByteDance.
And 1% sounds tiny, but it's not about the money.
It's not about the money at all. It comes with special rights, usually a board seat and, crucially, veto power over major content decisions.
So the argument that ByteDance is just a private company doesn't hold water in the same way it would for a U.S. company.
Exactly. And then you layer on top of that the 2017 National Intelligence Law. This law explicitly states that any Chinese organization or citizen shall, and I'm quoting here, support, assist, and cooperate with the state intelligence work.
And the interpretation of that in the West was pretty clear. If Beijing asks for the data, ByteDance cannot legally say no.
That was the core fear. And to be fair, ByteDance tried to fight this perception for years. They spent billions on lobbying. They swore up and down that the data was firewalled. But then came the leaks.
The BuzzFeed news tapes, that quote, "Everything is seen in China."
That audio leaked in 2022. It was from internal meetings where U.S.-based employees were admitting that the master admin accessed the keys to the kingdom still resided in Beijing. It completely undercut their entire public narrative.
And then came the spying scandal in December 2022. This wasn't theoretical anymore.
No, this was active surveillance. ByteDance's own internal audit team was trying to find the source of leaks to the press. To do that, they accessed the personal TikTok data of journalists from Forbes and the Financial Times.
Oh.
They tracked their IP addresses and their location data to see if they were ever in the same physical proximity as ByteDance employees who they suspected were the leakers.
They used the app to hunt down whistleblowers.
It was the smoking gun. It proved that the tool could be used for espionage, because it was being used for espionage, albeit for corporate security rather than state intelligence. But for lawmakers, the damage was done.
So TikTok had to pivot. Hard. They announced Project X.
This was their Hail Mary pass. The plan was to create a new subsidiary, TikTok USDS, and store all U.S. user data on servers that were physically in the U.S. and owned by Oracle, the American tech giant.
And Oracle was supposed to audit the code, right? That was part of the deal.
That was the big pitch. Oracle would review every single line of code that went into the app to ensure there were no backdoors to China. They did a similar thing in Europe called Project Clover.
So why didn't it work? Why didn't Congress buy it?
Because of the very nature of modern software. The TikTok algorithm isn't a static document you can read once and approve. It's updated constantly. It's machine learning. It evolves by the second. Critics, including a lot of technical experts, pointed out that you cannot effectively audit an algorithm that changes every second. Unless Oracle controlled the source of the code, not just reviewed it, the whole thing was kind of meaningless.
So the trust was just gone.
Oh.
And that brings us to segment 5, the showdown. The years 2024 to 2026. What a roller coaster.
It really was. It started with the legislative hammer. In March of 2024, the U.S. House passed H.R. 7521. President Biden signed it into law in April. The clock officially started ticking.
The deadline was January 19th, 2025. Divest or be banned.
And people forget how close we came to the cliff. On January 18, 2025, the day before that deadline, TikTok actually went dark in the U.S. for about 12 hours.
The near-death experience. I remember it so clearly. My feed just had that spinning circle, no connection.
It was total chaos. For millions of creators and small businesses, their entire livelihood just vanished overnight. But then the political winds shifted. Donald Trump had just won the 2024 election.
And despite having tried to ban it himself during his first term, he did a complete 180.
He flipped. He realized the immense political capital of the platform. He didn't want to be the guy who killed the most popular app in America on day one of his inauguration.
So he delayed it.
He issued an executive order delaying the enforcement of the ban. He essentially bought them time to find a buyer.
But he couldn't kill the law entirely. The legal pressure remained. ByteDance had to sell.
And the rumors were just wild for a while. For a moment, it really looked like Elon Musk might buy it and try to merge it with X.
I remember that. Then Steve Mnuchin was putting together a group.
But the deal that finally closed on January 22, 2026 was much more establishment.
Let's look at the new owners. Who actually holds the keys to the kingdom now?
It's officially called the USDS Joint Venture. Now, ByteDance actually got to keep 19.9%. They aren't fully out of the picture, which was a big concession.
But the controlling stake.
The controlling 80.1% is a mix of Oracle, the private equity firm Silver Lake, an AI company called MGX, and a consortium led by Michael Dell.
So it's big tech and private equity.
It is as corporate America as you can possibly get. Adam Presser is the new CEO. Shou Chu is still on the board as a director, but the power has clearly shifted. The servers are fully under U.S. control.
But there's one line in that deal announcement that caught everyone's attention. The source notes we have mentioned that the algorithm will be adjusted over time to favor American topics.
That is the phrase that pays. Favor American topics. What does that mean technically? Does it mean boosting NFL clips over soccer clips?
Or does it mean suppressing foreign news? Or does it mean something more ideological?
And we're already finding out.
Which brings us to right now, segment 6, the new controversy. Because we all thought the sale would save the app, but it seems like we've just traded one set of problems for another.
We basically traded China anxiety for corporate censorship anxiety. The ink on the deal is barely dry, and we are already seeing widespread reports of videos disappearing.
Specifically political content.
Yes. There are very serious allegations, and Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, is already launching an investigation into this, that the new algorithm is suppressing anti-Trump content, criticism of ICE, and, very curiously, any mentions of Jeffrey Epstein.
So the fear for years was that the Chinese government would use the app to manipulate American public opinion. Now, the accusation is that the new American owners are using the app to manipulate American public opinion.
It really raises the question, is a platform this powerful ever neutral? And the answer seems to be a resounding no. Whoever owns the server owns the reality.
And the users are reacting. We are seeing a mass migration.
It's the Splinternet happening in real time. Just look at the App Store charts this week. An app called UpScrolled is sitting at number 2. It's a direct TikTok clone, and its whole marketing pitch is unfiltered feeds.
But the irony, and I love this detail, is the rise of RedNote.
This is the ultimate plot twist. RedNote is the international name for Xiaohongshu, which is another Chinese app. It's sort of like a mix of Instagram and Reddit.
So let me get this straight. Users are fleeing the newly Americanized TikTok because of censorship fears to join an actual Chinese app.
Because they perceive it as being more authentic and, crucially, outside the reach of U.S. political tinkering. It just shows you how completely fractured the landscape has become. We used to have something resembling a global village. Everyone everywhere saw the same memes. Now
we have walls, digital walls. TikTok is banned in India, Nepal, Albania, banned it in 2025. It's restricted on government devices all across the EU and the U.S. And now the U.S. version is its own distinct, curated garden.
the global era of the internet is over. We are now entering the era of the sovereign internet, where every region has its own truth, its own trends, and its own algorithmic bias baked right in.
That is a heavy realization. We started this deep dive looking at a simple dancing app.
And we ended up staring at the fragmentation of global reality itself.
That's the story of the 2020s, I guess. The tools we built to connect us ended up just sorting us into our own little silos. So here's the final thought for you listening. The algorithm has new masters. It is now officially tuned, in their own words, to favor American topics. But does that actually make you feel safer? Or does it just make you wonder what you aren't seeing anymore?
The black box is still a black box. We just painted it red, white, and blue.
And if UpScrolled is the new refuge from all this, does the cycle just start all over again?
History would suggest it does.
On that note, we're going to log off. Stay curious, check your sources, and maybe go read a physical book.
See you next time.